Blog Talk Radio.
Following ingredients include a look behind the scenes. Cook uncovered until hot. Add grooves to taste.
I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl.
The accident was over a year ago. A second woman has been elected president. The 12th planet has been named in the solar system. The last wild polar bear has died. I slept through it all. I was here for my waking. He called it a beginning. He said it was good. I think he may have thought that anything I did was good.
Welcome to Transition Radio, live from Hollywood, Florida, with your host and hostess, Mark Angelo and Jessica Lynn Cummings. Show for trans folks, by trans folks, here to let your voice be heard.
Well, good evening and welcome to another edition of Transition Radio. And tonight we got a special guest for you. And not only do we have a special guest, but we're also being filmed by National Geographic. But before we get into all the details and bring in our guests, we'd like to thank our sponsor,
thepressformstore.com. They have everything you need for your transgender and cross-dressing needs. Please visit their website and tell them Transition Radio sent you.
Well, Sabrina Samone was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and currently lives in Charleston, South Carolina area. She currently works as a nurse and continuing her education Triton Technical College. At the start of her transitioning, she performed throughout the Carolinas and Georgia as a gender illusionist. She is also an actress, appearing in her first stage production at age 6, and continued to do 22 regional and university plays before landing a role as an extra in a student film, The Beat, which leads to another role in Caspar Andrus' film, Between Love and Goodbye, where she played Gina, with several scenes alive in the film.
She is currently in talks with a Hollywood producer for a chance at a made-for-cable TV series with several strong transgender characters, as well with a local Charleston, South Carolina producer, which she is co-producing a documentary about the lives and struggles of several transgender people. Recently, she launched a collaborative blog site, transmuseplanet.com, a personal and collaborative blog site of personal information, news, entertainment, and empowerment for the trans community. Her blog has recently gained attention, in part to an expose.
She reports on a former transgender roommate whose image and testimony is being used as an example for the ex-gay, ex-trans organization, PFOX. Her blog is a prelude to her first novel, The Premiere, which is currently in consideration for publication. She's also in real estate with 2 oceanfront vacation rentals on LGBT-friendly Hilton Head Island, South Carolina.
Sabrina believes that while it is important that the idea of transitioning to be just another female or male is important, we should never hide, but through our visibility, we are making the lives of the next person to transition just a little easier. Now, welcome to our show, the lovely Sabrina Samone.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Sabrina. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. How are y'all doing, guys?
Fantastic.
Doing fantastic. Little hectic day being filmed by National Geographic, but it's all good, and we're so glad you're able to join us here tonight on our show. And I'm sure the listeners...
Oh, I'm more than honored.
But again, no pressure.
No pressure. I'm sure the listeners are going to really have a treat. You are definitely an incredible individual. You've done a lot for the community, and we were very touched by that article you wrote for us, and it really, really honored.
Absolutely. That article was phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Oh, no, but it was the truth. It was the truth. Y'all, I love what y'all are doing, and you're an inspiration to us all.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much.
So what are the most memorable moments in your transition, Sabrina?
Oh, wow, so many. Just one?
No, she just remember it's a 30-minute show live. After the 30 minutes, it does go on recording, and people can listen to the entire show on demand.
Absolutely.
I guess, one of the most touching things for me personally, coming from a small town in South Carolina, I had only had my mother and my grandmother in my life, and it was very important to me that through my transition they supported me. I actually left home instead of confronting my mother and letting her know who I was. And whenever she accepted me, the first Christmas after I came out and I began my transitioning, she bought me my first female outfit and some jewelry. And I don't know, that was like the most memorable moment for me because it's the signal that my mother, I had her support and that she now saw me as the person I saw myself. And that meant the world to me.
And did she know that meant the world to you? Did you let her know? Because that sometimes...
Oh, yes. Yes, and we're very close now.
And that's important. Most transgender individuals don't have their family support, and it really hurts us, and it just creates a lot of depression, anxiety, because those that brought us into our world, or to this world, are supposed to be the ones that love us unconditionally, and some of us don't have that. You're very fortunate.
That is so true.
Absolutely. Sabrina, what have you learned from all your life-changing events, and what can you share with the future trans generation?
So many things I've learned. I think the biggest thing that I've learned through transitioning and going through the whole process is that humility in life will get you a lot further than being arrogant or, just only worried about me. That if you can give something back in the universe, it's going to come back to you. So I think that's the biggest thing to me that's really important. As far as the youth today, I think with all what's going on now with trans youth coming out, fighting the schools, demanding that they be seen and identified as who they see see themselves. I think they're teaching all of us who came before them a lot about standing up and being visible and saying, this is who I am, and accept me for who I am. I'm always, astounded when I see these stories of these young, brave kids that are saying, this is who I am. I didn't have the guts to do that back in the 80s, to say at 7 years old that I'm going to be a girl. That was scary to be able to say that to someone. So I admire them. So I think we're learning a lot from them as well. But for the future, growing up, I think remembering that with transitioning comes a lot of issues, to make yourself mentally capable to handle the changes of hormones. Be united. Be a part of a community of transgender people is important. Don't be a loner. Support one another and be there for one another, and I think you'll be okay.
Definitely. And, one of the things that, because a lot of us were almost forefronters, we actually created the door opening for all these young transgender individuals to feel good about themselves. Because back when I transitioned in 2003, many that transitioned way before then, we didn't have any role models. It wasn't okay to come out. So I think we gave them that bravery. And I think that, it's something that we wish we would have had back then, but I guess it was very difficult for us. I think it's a lot easier for them. There's a lot more education right now. There's many groups that are supporting them and helping them, educating the school system, educating the medical community. So I think those of us that have come before them have really opened up the doors for them.
Yes, and it's just amazing how brave they are, you know.
So
much more information nowadays than there ever was back then, just like you said.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on visibility?
I think it's important. I mean, there was a time when I started my process. It was very important to just blend and pass. And I know some people hate that term, or live in self. As far as living in South Carolina, it made it almost impossible to scream at the top of your lungs and say, I am trans. So you sort of have to just blend into society and do your best. But I think it's very important, not only to everyone else out there at your age, your generation, to stand up and say, I am a trans female or I'm a trans male, and I'm actually proud of that. But back to the youth, I think it's a message for them to see that it's okay, that we're actually proud of who we are as well.
Definitely, and to love oneself, because I think that's one of the things trans individuals lack is self-love. And once you learn to love yourself and be proud of who you are, then it's easy to be visible. Easy to say, hey, I'm proud to be trans. So, I know that's one of the goals that I had when I first transitioned. I wanted to be as visible as possible because I knew that I didn't have those role models. I knew it was difficult for me to find any information, so I wanted to make sure that I helped with that process, as I'm sure you have too with what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And speaking of what you're doing, tell us a little about Transmiss Planet, a personal and collaborative blog.
Well, it started off as just a personal blog. I was not familiar with really blogging. I've been writing a novel since I did the film Between Love and Goodbye back in 2008. An editor friend of mine, I'm doing my last rewrite and working on the last 2 chapters, and right after that, I was very involved with the election, volunteering in South Carolina, going canvassing door to door for Obama, and et cetera, et cetera. And, after the election, I was like, okay, what's next? And he was like, well, you're working on your book, right? And I'm like, sure. But I'm still a little nervous about my writing. I'm always second-guessing my writing. And he says, well, start a blog. And I'm going, okay, a blog about what? What will I talk about? And he goes, well, you are transgender. And I was like, I didn't want to really do the same old, woe am I, life is hard, or hormone, my day on hormones and stuff. So I want to do something that could uplift the community, make you think a little bit about what's going on in the world. One of the things I think is very important for trans community is uniting, to actually be together. I mean, it's so divided among so many different lines, whether it's economical lines, race, regional, and I think that we can at least come together, based on the fact that we are transgendered and understand one another and support and be more united than we are. So that was my initial reason, idea that I'm going to write a personal blog about my feelings about how the transgender community should be united. And shortly afterwards, I started learning about the blog world, and most sites are more collaborative, and other people are submitting blogs to you. So then I started doing that. So recently I've had Jack Ory. He's a motivationalist, and he's contributed to the blog, and with several other trans male and trans women have contributed stories of their life. It's a learning experience.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I have a question on that. It's transmissplanet.com. What inspired the name? How did you come up with that name, and what's in the meaning of that name?
Oh, okay. Actually, it's a nickname. I used to date a semi-famous rock star from London that moved here to Charleston, and back in 2003, 2004, and he used to just always call me his trans muse, and it always stuck. So my friends started calling me Muse, and I started looking into what the meaning of a muse was. And I had always had this saying that to be inspired in life, you must be able to inspire someone, because through inspiring others, you can be inspired. So I just sort of put the two together and like, okay, Transmuse Planet, okay. And that's how I came up with the name. It was actually pretty simple.
That's awesome. Very nice name. And Amuse, that movie, what I remember is that movie with Olivia Newton-John, Xanadu. She amused and inspired the artist to draw. So
right.
Your blog will inspire many people to do many wonderful things. Let me ask you, what was your childhood like?
Oh, wow. That's the rough one. As I said, yeah, okay. As I said, I always had my mother and my grandmother. Obviously, as a transgender person, we've been this way as far as we can remember. And so I was a very effeminate child, and the whole, the stereotype, the same routine you hear over and over, the same stories. I played with Barbies, et cetera, et cetera. My father left my mother because of it when I was about 9, 10 years old, and disowned me for that, and still never speaks to me. Then my mother remarried to my stepfather, who, when I was like 12, and he came from a very strict rural background. So he was determined that he was going to make me a man. So I was abused throughout high school. But I was able to find the strength to love myself and leave home, go to college, and make the best of what life has given me.
Awesome.
And as I said, I do have the support of my mother and my grandmother, and to this day we're like the Holy Trinity. I mean, we're everywhere. I'm always going up there to see them and shopping and getting our hair done, and just took my grandmother to get her first pedicure.
One of the things,
that's awesome.
I think a lot of parents in general, whether they have transgender children or they have a member of the LGBT community in their household, they don't realize that we are their biggest gift because we're actually teaching them how to love unconditionally. And I think we have been placed here for that reason. We have a big role, and our parents have a big role in learning, because they need to learn this lesson or they come back again and again, and it's all about learning. We are
a lesson of diversity and change.
Yes, we are spirits having a human experience. That's the way I always look at it.
And you say that a lot.
Yes, because it's true.
Yes, it is. I believe it. Hey, Sabrina, if you thought his question was hard, wait till you hear this one. Who was the hardest person for you to come out to?
My mom. My mom was, as I said, they were my only two people. So it was very important, like you said, to have that family support, because I had already seen that there were so many transgender people who didn't have that. I met this one girl, I'll never forget this, in Atlanta. She's totally disowned by all families. She was only like 16. And I was actually doing laundry, and I had to walk from my apartment out to the laundry room, and it was snowing that year. And I'm sitting there doing my dryer, doing my clothes, and I happened to look under the table, and there's this little girl sitting there, transgender female sitting there. I'm like, oh, my God, what are you doing there? And she told me that she was kicked out, and so it was always my greatest fear. I was like, oh, my gosh, I could never endure that. How would I have the strength to endure that, to be able to handle such a thing? I mean, we brought her in, me and my roommate, and she became our third roommate over time, but it was very important to me that my mother knew, because I was always so nervous about that. So I'll never forget, I told my mom, and she goes, okay, you don't think I knew this 5-10 years ago? I'm like, she was like, you didn't have to go all the way to Atlanta for me to know. I knew this for years. I knew this when you were growing up, and you're my child. And I remember just breaking down and going, oh, my God. I was just like crying, because I knew that I was one of the blessed and the lucky ones to still have my mother's love. And even my grandmother, who comes from an entirely different generation, she was born in the late 20s. So I was like, oh, she would never understand. And, when I call now, she's like, how's my little girl? She's the coolest one of all. So, yeah, they were the hardest because it meant so much to me that they still supported me and at least still had their love. I didn't need for them to really understand and deal with it on a daily basis, but I just needed to know that I still had their love. And that was the hardest point. Once I got over that and once I knew I had their love, it was like, heck to the world because I'm okay.
And that's, once you have that confidence that those above you accept you, then you don't care what other people think in the world because that's just your rock. That's your foundation, your family. Once you have your family's backing, then everything else is easy. Absolutely. So, definitely.
Once you have the most important people on your side, you don't care about the haters as much, and it doesn't hurt you as much. Well, again, there are a lot of kids out there that don't have that. There's a growing number of transgender homeless youth now, and I wonder what could we do as a community to help them because there are a lot of us that's already been there and we've already gone through it, and why are we standing here and they are suffering? So that's one of my issues, too, with why I wanted to get more involved and write a blog. And it became more about than just improving my writing skills, but also actually helping.
And one of the reasons we created Transition Radio is to bring all the different voices of the trans community, create a library so that anyone who's coming out, whether it's a family member or a trans individual, has a place to go to and listen to them, listen to all our stories, because although we do have a lot of sameness, there are a lot of differences as well. And I think by being many numbers in one particular site, that kind of gives people courage, like, wow, I'm not alone.
Yeah, exactly. That goes back to visibility.
Yes, definitely.
The more visible we are, the more individuals that are visible. There we go. Blow moment. Sorry, tongue twister. That are visible. The more people that are going to see that there's a lot of us out there that are transitioning or have transitioned, and I think that.
Yes, I think it empowers people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because you don't feel alone, and you don't feel like you're some strange little alien somewhere. When you see there's a lot of us, and you're like, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not strange. This is just how it is, and I think it's an evolution of mankind. To tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I think we're very angelic, and we have a lot to teach society, and I think it's all meant to be.
Absolutely.
So what are your hopes and dreams for the future?
My biggest hope this year is to have my book, the premiere, come out and for sale. I'm working with sending it to publishing companies now and looking into self-publishing. That's my greatest goal for this year, and also to finish my RN program. So those are my two main immediate goals for this year.
What got you into nursing? I'm an occupational therapist, and I've always been a healer since I was young, so being inside the medical field was one of the ways I felt I could help as being a healer. So,
and that's what kept me from going further into nursing for a long time because I wasn't too sure years ago. I started out, doing CNA work for years, and I wasn't too sure because every nurse I met was like, this was my calling, and I felt this since I was a child. And, as a trans female and finding it difficult to find work in South Carolina, my biggest thing was like, okay, I feel bad by saying this, but I just want a job, and that was I said, I couldn't be a nurse if I had that feeling because it has to be deeper than that. And more I felt that this was my calling because I love helping people. I love being there for people. I love elderly people. And considering how I could have had a worse life had I been disowned, had I not had my family's love, had I run into trouble or, been a victim of some discrimination or violent crime, I felt so blessed that I felt that I needed to give something back. What could I do to give back? So I decided to go back to school and get my LPN. And, for me, it is a way of giving back to God, giving back to the universe and saying, I was shown mercy, so therefore I'm going to be here to show some mercy.
That's a beautiful thing. We want to really thank you for being on the show. We have an announcement. Yeah. Hold on, we'll make the announcement, and then we'll say our goodbyes. We wanted to bring to attention the national shortage of life-saving sodium and potassium phosphate. The shortage has caused death to people who need it because they cannot absorb certain minerals, or they cannot eat solid foods, or they have been starved and need an infusion of electrolytes to survive. The nationwide shortage has been caused by the pharmaceutical companies not making more in time to save lives once they had to recall due to some form of contamination. They are on extreme back order, so when they do release the phosphate, it will not be enough to go around. Mark George is a fellow FTM who reports that the VA in Seattle told him that they are the last to get it when it comes out for release, maybe in April, but by then he may have died.
He quotes, "My body needs sodium phosphate 60 MEQ IV anywhere from twice to 5 times a month. It is a long process. It takes 5 hours minimum to infuse because it can ruin the heart if it is given faster. The drug companies are not making it fast enough, and as far as I can tell, maybe one company is really making it seriously, and another has no idea when they may get some out. 6 seniors and children depend on phosphate to stay alive, as well as this fact. It has been a problem since 2011, and now it is past a problem, and no one is talking about it except now when supply has run out. Hospitals need to disclose if they have any to share, and if they are putting pressure on the drug companies to get it out. I have links discussing it on the FDA site.
It is both sodium phosphate and potassium phosphate they have run out of. He cannot take the powder form, Nutoracose, or the pill form of phosphate because his gut does not absorb it. He has some form of malabsorption syndrome. It has to go through the bloodstream. He's just a T guy with a family that depends on him trying to stay alive. So if you guys have any information regarding this, please reach out to Mark George, and I'll provide you with his email. His email is mjor0819@yahoo.com. Again, it's mjor0819@yahoo.com. Or look him up on Facebook. His Facebook name is MJORGE2. That's MGeorge2. So if anybody knows anything, please help this fellow trans man out. This is a life or death situation. But we still have 3 minutes remaining, and we still have the beautiful Sabrina Samone on the line with us. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything you want to promote? Anything at all?
I would like to ask your viewers and your listeners to check out transnewsplanet.com. Hopefully by this summer, I'll be launching my first novel, The Premiere. It's fiction. It's about a transgender pop star meets the mob and meets Hollywood. So it's very much Jackie Collins meets RuPaul or Dana International.
Sounds very interesting. Well, we'll be providing on our website, we'll be providing you with our own page and the links to any place that you want the actual individuals to go to.
Oh, thank you.
Pictures, and collected a beautiful family of what we consider our Transition Radio family.
Thank you.
So, definitely. So the lady in the background is telling us we've got 90 seconds remaining.
I know.
Do you hear her?
Thank God we're the only ones who can hear her.
Can you hear her?
Well, thank you, guys.
No, I always wonder if the person we're interviewing can hear that. No? Okay. Well, thank you very much, and thank you so much for that beautiful article you wrote on us.
Yes, thank you, Sabrina.
You're more than welcome.
So we're going to end the show by thanking National Geographic for being here with us today and for the next couple of days. And we want to thank chatters for being in the chat room. And didn't look like they had any questions. They just listened very closely. We want to thank all the listeners and remind everyone we have a show this Sunday at 4 p.m. And we have Chrysalis, Lingerie, Side Loose, Ross is the founder. We're not sure if that's pronounced correctly. I always mess everything up. I'm Cuban here. Sorry. But that ought to be a area.
Start getting involved with the name.
I'll be like, Ricardo. Check that show out. Yeah, check the show out. It's going to be a very amazing show. And it's just a lingerie company launched for transgender females, and they have some full things.
Absolutely.
So thank you all. We love you, but remember to always love yourselves too. Good night, everybody.